Shalom and welcome to Ner Glide Jewish Ministries, where we teach the Bible from a Jewish historical, cultural, and linguistic perspective. This teaching will focus on Revelation chapter 13, verses 5 to 10, and this is Satan's End Times Agenda, part 2, as we're continuing in Revelation chapter 13, and I've titled this teaching, Blasphemy of the Beast. Now, just a quick review of this chapter and the context here. We know that Revelation chapter 13 uniquely provides extensive details regarding Satan's end times agenda and how this is in the context of Revelation chapters 12 and 13, which are really a unit here, and how we have that broad overview of spiritual warfare in Revelation chapter 12 with the two signs in heaven, which really go from Genesis to Revelation, and then how Revelation chapter 13 specifically focuses on the spiritual warfare on earth during the time of the Great Tribulation. And we know through in this text here in Revelation chapters 12 and 13 that Satan will seek to unleash his wrath on earth after he and his demons are thrown down from heaven in the end times. And Satan will give his power, throne, and authority to the Antichrist, the world ruler, the end times world ruler, who is called the beast who comes out of the sea. And we looked at all those different names in the previous teaching. It's important to remember those different titles and names of this Antichrist or end times world ruler. And this end times world ruler will seek to fulfill Satan's agenda on earth as he wars against God and against his people. We see this very clearly in the text of Revelation chapter 13. So let's continue in verses 5 to 10, where we read, "There was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies. An authority to act for 42 months was given to him, and he opened his mouth in blasphemies against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, that is, those who dwell in heaven. It was also given to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. An authority over every tribe and people and tongue and nation was given to him. All who dwell on the earth will worship him, everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who has been slain. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is destined for captivity, to captivity he goes. If anyone kills with the sword he must be killed. Here is the perseverance and the faith of the saints." So right away in these verses, we read about the mouth of the beast, right? The arrogant and boastful mouth of the end times ruler is something that is emphasized again and again, specifically here in Revelation 13, especially in the first couple of verses of this section, verses 5 and 6. Since this ruler will be empowered by Satan and operate in his authority, this ruler will speak blasphemous words against God and against heaven. At the very beginning of Revelation chapter 13, we read how blasphemous names are written on the seven heads of the beast. Let's just read verse 1 again, where it says, "Then I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads, and on his horns were 10 diadems, and on his heads were blasphemous names." This is really explaining and describing the character of this beast, this end times ruler, right? He will be marked by blasphemy. Blasphemy dominates the description of this pawn of Satan in verses 5 and 6. So again, just to read these verses, right, how we see the word blasphemy again and again. "There was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies. An authority to act for 42 months was given to him, and he opened his mouth in blasphemies against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, that is, those who dwell in heaven." So the words that this ruler will speak will not be arbitrary, but targeted, speaking blasphemies. Number 1, against God. Number 2, against his name. Number 3, against his dwelling, the tabernacle of God. And number 4, against those who dwell or tabernacle in heaven. It's a very targeted blaspheming, right, of God and his people. The boastful mouth of the end times ruler is noted several times in the book of Daniel, as we see here in the verses, beginning in Daniel 7:8, where we read about the little horn and a mouth uttering great boasts. And in 7:25, he will speak out against the Most High and wear down the saints of the Highest One. And then in Daniel 11:37, we read, he will show no regard for the gods of his fathers or for the desire of women, nor will he show regard for any other god, for he will magnify himself above them all. Right? So we see this boastful mouth and this arrogance that are continually used to describe who this end times world ruler will be. The self-promoting nature of the end times ruler is the same arrogant character as Satan himself, as we read about Satan in Isaiah 14:14. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. Right? That's the ultimate goal of Satan. He wants to be like God. Leviathan is described in a similar manner as we looked at in previous teachings, right? Where we read about Leviathan in Job 41:34. He looks on everything that is high. He is king over all the sons of pride. Arrogance, pride, this boastful mouth is what characterizes the end times ruler. The proud, boastful mouth of the beast is why his mouth is described as being like that of a lion. He will have a great and powerful mouth, like the roar of a lion, right? That speaks arrogantly against God, against those in heaven, and against the saints of God on earth. Now, I think it's important to see this contrast here, or the comparison and contrast, because as a false Messiah, the Antichrist, right, the end times ruler is compared to the true Messiah, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. So we're seeing this comparison of the false Messiah with this boastful, loud, arrogant mouth like a lion, right, is basically being compared or contrasted with the true Messiah, who is the real Lion of the tribe of Judah, who his character is described as one who comes in humility, one who comes as the Lamb of God, right? So there's two different lions in a sense, the boastful, arrogant one, and then the humble, almost sheep-like one who is sacrificed for our sin. So it's an amazing contrast of the false and true Messiah. Now, we are reminded in these verses of the 3.5 years of the Great Tribulation, which define the time frame of the unleashing of Satan's wrath through his evil end times ruler. In verse 5, we read the phrase, an authority to act for 42 months was given to him, right, to this end times ruler. And this is the final time in the book of Revelation that the 3.5 year marker is specifically mentioned, right? So we don't see this any type of mention of the 3.5 year marker again. And just to review, right, we have these different expressions of the 3.5 years. We have the 1260 days, the 42 months, time, times, and half a time. We see all of those here in the book of Revelation. We see them in the book of Daniel, and they're all referring to that specific time of the 3.5 years of the Great Tribulation. Just like we have the many names of the Antichrist, right, of the end times ruler, so we have the many expressions of that time period of the Great Tribulation. And it's always good just to connect them. Now, in verses 7 and 8, we read about the heart of Satan's agenda via the end times ruler, right? Through the end times ruler, right? Satan is giving all of his power and channeling it through this Antichrist, through the end times ruler. And here's kind of the heart of Satan's agenda. Verses 7 and 8. It was also given to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority over every tribe and people and tongue and nation was given to him. All who dwell on the earth will worship him, everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who has been slain. Now, the story of the dragon in Revelation 12 ends with the dragon failing to destroy the woman, who we see as Israel, and then turning his wrath to the rest of her children, right? Quote unquote. And we see that clearly as the saints. The entirety of Revelation chapter 13 is a prophecy of how Satan will carry out his plan to kill and destroy all who identify with the God of heaven and his Messiah. The end times ruler will actively make war against the saints. That's what we read in this text. This is the ultimate agenda of Satan, is to kill those who worship God and the Messiah, right? Because he wants all the worship for himself, for Satan, and through his end times ruler. We read how authority will be given to this end times ruler over every tribe and people and tongue and nation, and they will all worship him. The believers in Yeshua, however, will be separated from those who do not believe in the true Messiah. As we read in verse 8, all who dwell on the earth will worship him, the Antichrist, everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who has been slain. Right? The choice will be clear in the end times. Either worship the Lamb or worship the beast. That choice is clear today, but it will be even more clear then, right? When this intense spiritual warfare occurs on the earth during the time of the Great Tribulation. Now, just to mention, this is kind of black and white language as far as like all who dwell on the earth will worship him, right? Except those who believe in Yeshua as the Messiah, except those who have their name written in the book of life, right? So it's kind of like, it's very black and white, but we also know that there will be those who come to faith during those days. And I think it's just really emphasizing the spiritual choice people will have, either to worship Satan via his Antichrist, the end times ruler, or to worship God through his Messiah, right? Either worship the true Messiah or worship the false Messiah. There's going to be a very clear choice at that time. And there's going to be very few who stay in the middle. Everyone will have that choice, right? To either worship the true Messiah or worship the false Messiah. As I just said, there will be no middle ground in those days. Now, we also read about the book of life in verse 8. The book of life is something we see several times in the scriptures. It is first referenced in Exodus chapter 32, verses 32 to 33 by Moses, and later by King David in Psalm 69, verse 28. Now, the book of life is mentioned 7 times in the book of Revelation. Obviously, we see many different variations of 7, the number 7 throughout the book of Revelation. So it's interesting the book of life appears 7 times in the book. And we know that the book of life is opened in Revelation chapter 20 at the time of judgment. So we'll look more at that later when we get to Revelation chapter 20. But just to kind of put it in perspective here, where we see how there are certain ones, right? All of those who believe, their names are written in the book of life. Now, what is being referred to in the phrase, quote, written from the foundation of the world in the book of life, right? Is it referring to the names are written from the foundation of the world, or the book itself, or the lamb that was slain is from the foundation? What is from the foundation of the world? There's different perspectives on this, but it is most likely speaking of the book itself that is, quote, from the foundation of the world, and not the writing of the names. I mean, they're continually being written. But we read this in Revelation chapter 17, verse 8, in another use of the book of life in the book of Revelation. We read, and those who dwell on the earth, whose name has not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, right? So it seems to be referring more to the book of life itself, that is from the beginning, right? Ever since God's creation. And this is from the foundation of the world and will continue until that day of judgment. So then we come to verse 9. In Revelation 13:9, we read these familiar words of warning and exhortation, right? Quote, if anyone has an ear, let him hear, unquote. So where have we heard this word of exhortation before? If anyone has an ear, let him hear. This is a familiar phrase that Yeshua himself used at the end of his teachings as recorded in the Gospels, for example, in Luke 8:8. In the book of Revelation, we see this phrase used 8 times. It's used for every congregation, right? We have 7 times when the 7 congregations are mentioned in Revelation chapters 2 and 3, and each time you have this warning, right? If anyone has an ear, let him hear. Or something similar to that. And then we have it one time here in Revelation chapter 13, verse 9. So here in Revelation chapter 13 is the only time in the prophetic narrative of Revelation chapters 4 to 22 that we read this phrase, which I think is, quite profound. Just as each letter was to be received and responded to by the seven congregations 1,950 years ago, approximately, even so, we who believe today should be careful to hear and heed this warning of prophecy before it occurs. And I believe it is significant that only here, after describing the height of Satan's agenda to unleash his wrath upon the saints of God on earth, do we read this exhortation, if anyone has an ear, let him hear. God's saying, pay attention to this, right? This is an important truth that's being expressed. It's an important prophecy. It's an important warning. We need to listen to what is being said. We need to hear it and respond. Are we listening? Are we paying attention? Do we understand what is written in the first 8 verses of Revelation 13? What we just read, right? Do we have ears to hear and a mind to understand today regarding what God is saying about the plan and the agenda of Satan in the last days? A great time of testing will come upon the earth, specifically targeted against the saints, believers in Yeshua as the Messiah. This is what we read in these verses. The end times ruler will war against the saints. We either heed this word of prophecy or we ignore it. That's a choice we have. We are told to pay attention. So I just want to mention something. Today is February 28th, 2023, as I'm recording this teaching. Now, there were 2 major earthquakes that occurred near the Turkish-Syrian border on February 6th, killing thousands of people, mostly instantly. Since February 6th, there have been other earthquakes and thousands of aftershocks in the same region, with more than 50,000 people known to have been killed to date. A devastating situation there in the southeastern region of Turkey and northern Syria. Now, the earthquakes in Turkey were felt in Israel. That same week of February 6th, there were a series of smaller earthquakes in the land of Israel. I was there myself at the time. I literally felt it in my bed one night at 11 p.m. as the building started to shake. Thankfully, the earthquakes in Israel were much more lower in scale and did not do a lot of damage. And no one was killed, as far as I know, in Israel as a result. But earthquakes are a serious reminder of the brevity of life, the fragility of humanity, and the certain coming judgments on this earth, as we read about earthquakes in prophecy. Now, ironically, the first earthquake occurred at 4:17 a.m. local time, meaning in the country of Turkey, which at the same time, that was 5:17 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, February 5th, the day before, right? There's an 11-hour difference between Turkey and California. The Grammys performed from 5 to 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on February 5th, which was the exact hour of the earthquake in Turkey. And is this coincidence? I mean, I couldn't believe this as I was putting it together. As all of you know who are following these teachings, last week I mentioned this whole unholy performance at the Grammys and worshiping of Satan. And then I realized as I just was doing this teaching that it was exactly that same time frame of February 5th in America, in California, from 5 to 8:30 p.m. when the Grammys took place, and that earthquake that happened at 5:17 Pacific Standard Time, which is February 6, 4:17 Turkey time. It's just coincidence that as Satan is being worshipped on a global scale, that these major earthquakes occur in this world. We need to pay attention. Earthquakes are like global alarm bells, calling us to wake up spiritually and to continually look to the Lord and to his coming. As we read here in Isaiah 45:22 to 23, turn to me and be saved, all the ends of the earth, for I am God, and there is no other. I have sworn by myself, the word has gone forth from my mouth in righteousness, and will not turn back, that to me every knee will bow, every tongue will swear allegiance. What a beautiful reminder. All the world, all the earth needs to turn to the Lord, right? It doesn't matter which nation we're from, what religion we were quote unquote born into, right? All the world needs to turn to the Lord. And I think these earthquakes are a great reminder of the brevity of life and the judgments to come. We need to know him. We need to turn to him. We need to worship him. Before Messiah's return, a great tribulation will occur on the earth, as we read here in Revelation chapter 13 and other scriptures. The warning is, the exhortation is, if anyone has an ear, let him hear. We then read the final words of warning and exhortation in this section in verse 10. If anyone is destined for captivity, to captivity he goes. If anyone kills with the sword he must be killed. Here is the perseverance and the faith of the saints. So excluding that last sentence there, I just want to focus on the first part of that verse. What is being communicated here, right, by this phrase, if anyone is destined for captivity, to captivity he goes, right? If anyone kills with the sword he must be killed. So there are various opinions. Commentators say various things about this regarding what this means. I believe it is simply summarizing the atrocities of what is coming during the 3.5 years of the Great Tribulation to all people, as well as the judgments for those who commit those atrocities. It's going to affect everyone, and there's no escaping the great persecution at that time, right? It's going to be a living hell on earth like never before experienced. That's what the Bible tells us. The global scale of evil at that time will be unsurpassed, right? And I put it in this picture of the window of persecution because it's going to be global. There's not going to be a place on this globe, on this earth, that will not be untouched by the evil of Satan's end times world ruler. I believe verse 10 is a warning for us all who have faith in Messiah to be prepared for the atrocities that we will be subject to individually and corporately as the body of Messiah. We are given these warnings for a reason. Therefore, we are reminded to endure and have faith, right? That's why we have this final phrase here in verse 10, to endure and have faith. So again, this final phrase is, here is the perseverance and the faith of the saints. So the Greek word here for perseverance is hupomonai and is defined as a remaining behind, a patient enduring. This Greek word carries the meaning of endurance, steadfastness, a patient waiting for. The Greek word for faith is pistis and means faith, belief, trust, confidence, fidelity, faithfulness. We're familiar with this word, faith. Perseverance and faith are to be the character traits that the saints are called to display during the time of the Great Tribulation. Satan's end times agenda, as revealed in Revelation chapters 12 and 13 up to verse 10, which we have studied and looked at, is clear. Number one, Satan's end times agenda is to blaspheme Almighty God, his dwelling place, and those who dwell in heaven. And number two, to make war against God's people on earth, to destroy the nation of Israel, right, the people of God, the people of Israel, and to kill his saints, all who believe in Yeshua, right? All those who believe in God's word and believe in Jesus, have that faith in Yeshua, our Messiah. This is very clearly spelled out in the verses of Revelation chapters 12 and 13. Satan will invest all of his evil power, authority, and energy in the end times world ruler, right, the Antichrist, to fulfill his plan during the 3.5 years of the Great Tribulation. The only response to Satan's agenda and the blasphemy of the beast is the perseverance and faith of the saints. It's interesting as we read all these verses in verses 1 to 10, with all the evil that Satan will do through his end times world ruler, right? God says it's the perseverance and faith of the saints. That is the word given to those who believe, right? We must endure. We must have perseverance and continue to have faith. We're not to fight in this physical world, right? We are to fight in the spirit and to trust God with our eternity. Do we have ears to hear what is written in Revelation chapter 13? Do you have perseverance and faith to endure until the end? Right? We are challenged with this. This is for all believers and especially for those in the end times, right? But this is also something that goes beyond simply a certain time frame. We're always to persevere and have faith until the end. This is the conclusion to Satan's End Times Agenda Part 2, Blasphemy of the Beast, right? We'll see how that will be one of the main focuses of the Antichrist in the end times, to blaspheme God, to blaspheme his people, and to make war against the saints. Here's some of the resources I use in my preparation for this teaching. And as always, feel free to share this teaching with others, and please consider a donation of any amount to continue to support our work of teaching God's Word from the Jewish historical, cultural, and linguistic perspective. Thank you so much, and see you again next time.